Hello Reds and welcome to the 100% United Season Review, Part 2. I'm your host TC and I'm joined again by my co-host Scott. Hello mate.
Hello mate.
In Part 1 we discussed Jose Mourinho's downfall and how the civil war at Manchester United tore the club apart. If you haven't listened to it yet, jump back and listen to it now before you tuck into Part 2. Now, the honeymoon period with Ole at the wheel. Christmas came early and an old legend returned to Old Trafford. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was appointed manager of Manchester United until the end of the season, and we felt like we could breathe again. It was a blooming nice Christmas in the end, wasn't it, Scott?
It really was. It was much better than what we were all expecting when we got stuffed at Liverpool that day. Just a lot of relief.
Yes, mate. And obviously it was unexpected. We really didn't know what we would be in for when Jose got the sack. There were different names being floated, Nicky Butt, some other ex-players as well. But out of nowhere, Ole appeared.
Yeah, I really couldn't believe it. And I think the appointment of Mike Phelan as well caught us all unawares that he was assistant coach of Central Coast Mariners down in Australia. And didn't think there was going to be any coming back for him ever. And it was a really nice surprise.
It really was, wasn't it, pal? And as we alluded to in part 1 of the season review, first game obviously went away to Cardiff. The only team Ole ever managed in the Premier League actually went down with him as well. And the United of old returned 5-1. Pogba on fire, free-flowing, re-energised. Anthony Martial goal was rolling back the years, wasn't it, buddy?
Really was. Fantastic team play. You know, I think we were all pretty happy to see Marcus Rashford start in the number 9 position. You know, it really wasn't a huge change in the lineup or the personnel he used. I just think that a few restrictions had been lifted and our attacking intent was back and we were piling forward. Even 2, 3, 4 goals up, we were still piling forward.
Yeah, I suppose Pogba was in a slightly more advanced position. Lingard obviously was back, won the penalty and took it himself. So Pogba showing a different side of his personality with Jose out the door. And Ole after the game said it's easy to work with good players. And everything looked rosy going into Christmas, didn't it, buddy?
Really did. Really did. And, you know, it was maybe the gap between us and 4th place was maybe a little bit too optimistic for us to catch. But it was just good to have good football back. And I think to have us playing the United way again.
Yeah, Jose squeezed the life out of us for the last few months, didn't he? It really squeezed the enjoyment out of the fans, the players, and it just felt we were free again. It felt we could breathe, express ourselves. I mean, scoring a free kick after 3 minutes, Rashford on fire, Herrera from range, Martial and Lingard adding a couple at the end. I mean, it was vintage United, wasn't it?
It was, and let's not forget, the last few months of Jose Mourinho wasn't the way we always played under him, right? Like, no. Think about his song when it said, Jose's got us playing the way United should.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And, you know, it certainly wasn't that way all the time. I don't want people to think we didn't appreciate the good football when we had it. It just, the tactics was so negative, and it just, I think, piled up, and the tip of the iceberg was that absolutely dour performance at Anfield, where we were in the game for a good hour of it, and we just never made any effort.
You're right. Jose made a rod for his own back in those last few months with the, as I said, the civil wars that he caused within the club, and with the weird selections that he did to prove a point, the chasms that he created between himself and the fan, himself and the management, himself and the players. As you say, it wasn't always like that under Jose, but at the end, he made it impossible for us to keep him.
Really did. Really did. And I think, as we alluded to last episode, it was all part of his plan to get sacked and walk away with that huge payout, because I don't think he really wanted to be there in the end, but he just didn't want to quit.
Yes, mate. And when you add it up, you know, the not moving his family up there, Rui Faria going, Ed Woodward not backing him, Pogba obviously not reacting to him, handing him the captain's band after the World Cup. It did all mount up. But Jose Mourinho was old news as we went into Christmas. We were happy, we were free again. And on Boxing Day, traditional nice day for United fans everywhere. We've had some good results in the past on Boxing Day. 28 minutes it took for Nemanja Matic to put us in front. And it came from a corner. It was
from a corner, unbelievable.
Yeah. Marcus Rashford again on set pieces, scored a free kick a few days earlier, whipped it in. Lindelof got there, couldn't hold it, and Matic just slipped it in. And then Pogba caught fire, slipped one in from the edge of the box, and an absolute beauty from long range. More touches, more passes, and more shots for Paul Pogba, with him really, really returning to form.
Yeah, I think he's a huge confidence player that when his confidence is up, he just seems more energetic and wants to be more involved with the play. It's those kind of days that you see the real Paul Pogba that make it difficult to see when he's not up for it mentally or physically.
Yes, mate. And, this podcast, we're keeping it positive. We're focused on the lovely honeymoon period that Solskjaer gave us, the joy and the hope we had as United fans. But you are right. Paul Pogba does seem to just have a switch, and he chooses when to put it on and off, unfortunately. But let's stay positive, Scott. We've had enough bad weeks. Pogba did bag a brace, as I say. The second one, an absolute beauty from range. And Marcus Rashford was looking a lot sharper again, wasn't he?
He really was. And again, our attacking restrictions seemed to be released. We were just flooding forward. Really great one-touch football, good link-up play between midfield and attack. And everyone just sort of on the same page, weren't we?
We were, mate. And we continued at the end of December. It was just magic. 30th December, Bournemouth travelled to Old Trafford, took 5 minutes. Rashford skinned the guy alive down the right, set up Pogba after 5 minutes. Pogba was again in with a brace on the 33rd, towering header, 4 in 2 games for Pogba. Martial set up Rashford for a deserved third on 45 minutes, with a little habit we started gathering of scoring just before half-time, and a sublime pass from Pogba to release Lukaku on the 72nd minute. Pogba almost grabbed a hat-trick, keeper just tipping it onto the post. Bailly managed to get a red card at the 79th minute, the old mad dog.
Yeah.
But we'd scored 12 goals in 3 games, mate, since Ole's appointment, and it just felt amazing.
It really did. And again, we were attacking from the first minute. We were coming out and looking for the first goal. I always found that when we started well, we always ended well pretty much. It was just every so often we'd have a bit of lapse of concentration, and that would really affect our entire game. But those first few games, we were just attacking from the first minute and going for the throat.
You're right, and we were also defending from the front, weren't we, bud? We were really pressing, pushing up high up the field, which is a massive change from the last few months under Mourinho.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just think we were so much more positive in possession that we were always looking to go forward. And maybe it was just a change because from the Mourinho tactics that it just felt like we had some weights on us and we weren't able to go forward at the speed we wanted to. It just seemed like all the shackles were off.
Yeah, and as I did mention earlier, Pogba's position was altered slightly. He was pushed further up towards the number 10 position, and obviously had Herrera and Matic protecting him most games as well. So there was a change there. And I don't know if you remember, pal, but when Pogba was signing for us, we had a long conversation, didn't we, about the best position and where Pogba will fit in. And I did suggest again and again that we should aim for him being number 10.
Yeah, for sure.
I said he needs protection. He needs to be able to show all those parts of his game that other midfielders don't have. So there's no point in restricting him, holding him back. Yeah, sure, he can ping it around, but he can't really dictate the tempo of play from deep. So why not push him up to the number 10 position, which is what happened early days under Ole. And obviously, we were rewarded with goals galore.
Yeah, I think when we signed him, we were looking to play more of the 4-2-3-1 and have him be in that number 10 position and surround him with a couple of players behind him to take some of the defensive responsibility away from him. A couple of wide players, a couple of speed-based wide players to be able to get the crosses in and someone in front of him. And the longer we went, the more we try to shift into this 4-3-3 and have him play on the left of that 3-man midfield and expect all the same attacking prowess that he could have in the number 10, but also have some of these defensive responsibilities that a 3-man midfield need to have.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of unrealistic to expect that,
Yeah, well, especially with his lack of work rate. I mean, obviously, Mourinho played with Frank Lampard in a 3-man midfield with Makelele and Essien particularly well. But Lampard was obviously willing to make it a 3-man midfield when he needed to.
For sure.
Pogba, when he's sort of picking and choosing, it does leave us a bit short. But I will say as well that Jose certainly picked him deeper at times just to prove a point. There were times when Jose was just trying to annoy him. It was obvious that the players we had available, Pogba should have been further forward, and he was picking him back as one of 2 defensive midfielders, really. So there was a bit of that going on as well. I think we have to be fair to both parties.
Oh, I definitely agree. It just seemed like the marriage didn't make sense at the end,
No, it didn't. So January came round, pal. 2nd of January, United travelled to Newcastle. Not a nice place to go the day after New Year's Day at all. Took a while for us to get going. You might say it was our first proper test. Rashford free kick spilled for Lukaku's first. And then Lukaku to Sanchez to Rashford for the winner. Lukaku and Sanchez linking up really well. And Sanchez starting to show that maybe he'll come into form under Ole. Pogba broke away at the end, almost scored again in the 93rd. a really, really good performance. Ollie was going bananas at the end with the fans. It seemed like this was here to stay, this run of form.
Yeah, I think that was Sanchez's first game under Solskjaer, wasn't it? And it was actually the first example we had of Ollie's substitutions being bang on. I mean, Lukaku came on and scored with his first touch.
He did.
He brought Sanchez and Lukaku on just before that free kick happened, actually. And 30 seconds later, Lukaku got the rebound in. And it was just the first time we really got to see Ollie's golden touch when it came to substitutions.
Yes, and it did look like everything Ollie touched turned to gold at that time, didn't it?
It did, and we got a clean sheet.
We did.
The amount we got this year, I think we have to commend us when we did get them.
You're right, pal, because we obviously flew out the traps, but we conceded in each of our first three. But yeah, clean sheet away to Newcastle was always a good sign. And then we had Reading travel to Old Trafford just 3 days later in the FA Cup. Ollie made 9 changes. Only took 22 minutes for Mata to score. Our first meeting with our old pal VAR under Ollie. Offside when Fred popped it in, but then it was called back and Mata slotted in the penalty. Sanchez again looking sharp.
Didn't really make sense, that goal, to me, mate. I'll be honest. Didn't really make sense. First, I just couldn't believe when we actually got awarded it. It didn't really make sense to me.
Yes.
It was the first game we actually played under VAR, wasn't it, ever? And it took 20 minutes for us all to be scratching our heads thinking, what is going on?
It wasn't our first one. Mata had a goal disallowed. Remember the first ever VAR with that wonky line? We had that one as well, remember?
No, I don't.
So Mata was given offside, wasn't he? When it was
on that same game.
Was it the same game? It might well have been.
I think it was the same game. It was a little bit later, but it was
mayhem.
I think they were looking to see if Fred's goal was offside for the VAR, right? And then decided, okay, it was offside, but it was a penalty beforehand.
There's a penalty in there, yeah.
It was mental. The kind of thing that happens against you, you're like, what is going on here?
It's quite incredible, pal, that we've had more penalties this season than we've had for decades. We've had VAR giving us everything on a plate. And it's the one season where we didn't need it. It was wasted on us all. You know, it's so weird.
Yeah. And that example, we weren't even looking for the penalty. We were just looking to see if it was offside or not. And it's like, hey, it was offside, but we're also going to get the penalty. I mean, I couldn't believe our luck.
Mate, we used to spend 90% of the time in the box under Fergie and still not get a penalty for 5 months in a row. And under these jokers, we're getting a penalty every blooming week. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I think VAR might be a good thing in the end.
Well, you have said that from the start, pal, haven't you? To be fair. Sanchez and Lukaku again linking up for the second. It really looked like Sanchez might find some form under Ollie.
Really did. And I remember you said to me that we signed him in January of the last year, but we might actually begin to reap the rewards in January of this year. We just needed a
spot on again.
Yeah, for a couple of games anyway. We just needed a attack-minded coach to come in and give him a bit of confidence. He is a huge confidence player like Lukaku is. And anyway, played well for a few games again.
He did.
Just couldn't hold it. Yeah.
He did. But the criticism was we hadn't played anyone decent. That was the criticism being levelled at Ollie. We were all going mad, singing Ollie's at the wheel. Yeah. You are my Solskjaer. We were getting very excited. The rest of the world, they were getting a bit worried, but they were saying, look, you travelled to Tottenham in a week and we'll see how you do there. Yeah. And we did. We went to Wembley. Paul Pogba, an absolutely amazing ball through to Marcus Rashford just before half-time again. As I said, a little habit we were developing. And Marcus Rashford fired past Lloris. And David De Gea made 11 saves, many with his feet.
It was amazing.
We stormed Wembley.
It was probably the best goalkeeper performance I've seen since... remember, we went to Newcastle that year and Schmeichel just pulled out 5 world-class saves from Ferdinand and Asprilla.
96.
Yeah. It was, I remember thinking that.
Magical day.
Yeah, what a day.
Eric Cantona with a volley and Peter Schmeichel, Les Ferdinand, he was keeping everyone out, wasn't he?
Just quietly, yeah.
It was magic. 6 from 6 under Ollie. We'd gone to Wembley. Everyone said, you can prove yourself against Spurs, and we did.
We really did.
It was the real deal.
The thing I really liked about the goal the most was Jesse won the ball back just inside their half, laid it off to Pogba, and as soon as he won it back, you saw Rashford at the top of the screen just start heading forward, heading for the hills, and he knew exactly what was going to happen, knew exactly what Pogba was capable of, sticking it on a 10-pence for him, and it just it showed great belief amongst the squad that I'm going to make this run, you're going to get me, and we're going to score. It was great to see.
Yeah, that's where Rashford flourishes as a number 9. when he's got midfielders who can play those kind of balls and he can use his pace and his timing over the top. I particularly liked actually the way Ole used Rashford and Lukaku in the beginning. He used the other player to encourage the other player with form. He brought them in at the right times. It's something that slipped away at the end, and he ended up sticking, obviously, with Rashford as his main man. But I liked it when it was kind of the old United way where the best striker on form at the time plays.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. And especially in a game that we were maybe trying to counter-attack them a bit more than we usually do. And Rashford is fantastic at being able to stretch defences and play just off the last man and able to go beyond it.
Yeah, and January continued. 19th of January, Brighton travelled to Old Trafford. Pogba won a penalty, scored a penalty on the 27th, a slightly shorter run-up. And Rashford, again, 3 minutes before half-time. The habit continues.
What a goal.
Yeah, absolutely, pal.
What a goal.
Consolation for Brighton on the 72nd. But yeah, we were looking fantastic. 100% in January. Delot had to replace Shaw after the warm-up. Totally unfazed us. And Ole became the first United manager to win his first 6 league games in a row.
Yeah, it was a wonderful time, wasn't it? There was a lot of belief back, and I think that we'd maybe got into a bad pattern as fans of not expecting much from the team anymore, and we were just being surprised week in, week out.
That's a great point, Scott. We had. And you know, we do say the players got to give 100%, and I always say the fans got to give 100% too. Mm-hmm. Even when the team's not going so well, we've got to give our vocal support every single minute of every single game, because that makes United play better. So, you know, it's our job too. But we were 3 points off fourth, and we were looking right back in the mix, mate. And January couldn't last long enough.
3 clean sheets in a row, TC.
Yeah, leading up to Brighton, yes. Yeah. So the FA Cup returned on the 25th of January. We headed to Arsenal. Another game tagged as a massive test for United. And once again, Jesse Lingard turned the Emirates into his own personal dance floor. And United triumphed 3-1, knocking Arsenal out of the FA Cup. A buoyant away end, taunting Arsenal. It really was just like the old days.
It was. But again, a game that on paper, we can beat Brighton and we can beat Reading and Newcastle, and we maybe got lucky against Spurs. If it wasn't for De Gea, you would have lost, blah, blah, blah. But you're not going to beat Arsenal. And there we were. We absolutely bossed it that night, mate. They had a few chances. Romero was great in goal, but we absolutely bossed it. And it all came, you've got to say, from Paul Pogba in the middle, who was just a class above everyone else.
He was, and Alexis Sanchez did very, very well to score the first as well, and shut those Gooners up. And again, mate, Lingard 2 minutes later. This is a habit I loved. It was United of old. We scored and then we went for the second. We'd knock goals in just before half-time. We'd score just before the end of the game. No wonder we were getting carried away, pal, because it did seem all the hallmarks of Fergie's days were coming back.
Yeah. And that second goal, Luke Shaw had a great run across from left to right, set Lukaku off. And I think Lukaku really did start on the right-hand side that game instead of playing number 9, and had 2 fantastic assists in the first half.
Yeah, absolutely, pal.
Clinical finishing, really clinical.
So just at the end of January, Burnley travelled to Old Trafford, 2-0 up, 51 minutes, 81 minutes. It was looking like we had dropped points for the first time under Ole. Looked like we'd be beaten at Old Trafford too. But in the 87th minute, Pogba stepped up and fired home a penalty. And on the 92nd minute, Victor Lindelof saved the points for United. What looked like an awful day for United actually turned into a positive. And we showed that fighting spirit, that comeback spirit of old. And again, although we dropped the points, it still felt that we were on the right path.
Really, really important day, wasn't it? Really important day.
It was.
We played all right. Had a few big chances. I mean, Mata had a couple of chances. Lukaku had a chance. And remember, Andreas Pereira was really unlucky, and they sort of swarmed on in and had a very high press for that first goal, managed to score, and then to go 2-0 down after 81 minutes, we were all looking around thinking, God, this is going to be the day, isn't it? We've raised our game to beat Spurs away, we've beat Arsenal away, and now Burnley are going to come to Old Trafford and manage to catch us with our pants down. And really important day that we just didn't give up, and we just kept it going, and it was sort of reminiscent of how we used to play under Fergie.
It was, mate. And the month ended with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer being named the Premier League Manager of the Month for January. He insisted on having his whole backroom staff pictured alongside him in the trophy. He didn't want to take all the credit, which was a lovely, lovely touch. And richly deserved, you must say.
Yeah, definitely. And it just showed how humble he was, that it would have been so easy for him to come in and be like, yep, this is all down to me. It just showed how humble he is as a man to have that picture with everybody.
Absolutely, pal. And February started as January went. 9 minutes in against Leicester, Pogba, another assist, setting up Marcus Rashford for another goal. Fired United 2 points off Chelsea with the same games played. Before we faced Fulham away on the 9th of February, Pogba, Martial, Pogba again. 7 in 9 for Pogba, 10 in 11 for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. We reacted to the Burnley draw very, very well, didn't we?
We did. And what a goal from Martial. 50-yard dribble through a couple of players.
Just unbelievable.
Fantastic goal, yeah. And just shows what he can do when he really applies himself.
Yes, mate.
It was a completely dominant performance.
Yeah, when Pogba and Martial are on form, they're next to unstoppable. If only they could be every week, we'd be looking at a lot different picture now, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you, mate.
All about the attitude with that pair.
Yeah.
So, Champions League returned on the 12th of February. Again, tagged as a massive, massive test for United. Unfortunately, Kimpembe looked like he should have been sent off. He was given a stay of execution and on the 53rd minute, put PSG ahead before 7 minutes later. As we mentioned before, goals are a big trigger for this United side, positive or negative. Mbappe on the 60th minute, 2-0 to PSG. The tie looked dead and buried. For the first time in a few games, we didn't dominate possession. We had less shots on goal, less shots on target, less corners. And in the 89th minute, Paul Pogba got sent off. And you'd have to say he gave up, really, didn't he, that night?
Yeah, it was tough because first half we were great, and if we had just managed to convert one of those chances, it could have been really, really different. And it just showed that we respond so well to when we score and respond so badly to when we concede.
Yeah.
Because after we conceded that first goal, we just didn't seem in it. Head started to go down, and it was stupid because, as we saw in the end of it, there's a lot of football to be played over two legs in the Champions League. It just seemed too early for us to be giving up and pointing fingers.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm alluding to with the Pogba red card. You should be keeping your head there. You should be saying, look, I'm the leader of this team, I'm the star man. I need to be available for Paris because we're only 2-0 down with 90 minutes to play. When actually down tools instead, a petulant move. But in the end, it turned out all right, didn't it? So we're not going to hang on that for too long.
I have to say, though, it was something that he had been doing that for a while when he sort of tries to use his big frame to get good positioning on the ball. And I would always think he's going to catch someone with a high boot one of those days when he sort of tries going over the ball to shield himself between the ball.
He does a kind of big step, doesn't he, with his studs showing?
Yeah. And, it's just going to take one player to stick his leg in the way, maybe even deliberately, to get him sent off. And I think it happened then. Yeah.
And another takeaway from that night was obviously the old pantomime villain, Angel Di Maria, returning to Old Trafford and pretending to have a swig of beer, annoying and winding up United fans everywhere. But we'll leave that to Romelu Lukaku to remind him of that in a couple of weeks in the second leg.
And I think if you're going to mention that, swearing at our fans in celebration for their first goal when he provided the cross in the corner for Kimpembe to score, and then was screaming expletives at the East Stand. It wasn't the best thing to see, was it?
No, a repulsive little creature, isn't he?
Yeah. Let's leave that to Romelu, as you say.
Let's just get our biggest, strongest, hardest man to start on him, yeah?
Big time.
So the FA Cup followed away to Chelsea, not exactly the tie we would have chosen, coming off our first defeat under Ole. But it was all right. Herrera on 31st minute, Pogba assisted, and then Pogba from Rashford on the 45th minute, firing United into the next round. And it's funny, isn't it, how times change. That day, the Chelsea fans were singing to Sarri, you're getting sacked in the morning. They were singing for Frank Lampard to return in the manager's chair at Stamford Bridge, and they were looking in disarray, and we were looking like we were flying.
Yeah, I'll never forget that game as the time I managed to really get you good when we were talking throughout the game, and your feed was a little bit behind mine. And when Pogba scored, I automatically sort of raised my voice in celebration. You're like, "What happened? What happened?" And I said, I just conceded a goal, no good. And here you are for the next minute trying to, don't worry, 1-1, half time's not bad.
Yeah, I was trying to cheer you up, wasn't I? Unbelievable.
I got you so good.
You did. It will never happen again. It was the only time in history. And the only reason why you did get me is because I trust you implicitly when it comes to United. Only you and my old man do I trust to not leak any false information. And you used that against me, but it was hilarious, mate. And when I saw the Pogba goal go in, I was stunned, wasn't I? Absolutely stunned.
Yeah, you're right. It can never be that seamless again.
Never. It was brilliant, mate. A load of fun. Into the hat for the FA Cup. And just the fact we were doing stuff like that again, mate, meant United were back. For the months before, we were blooming miserable talking about United. We had to find some other subjects to chat about as well. So, but yeah, we were buoyant, but Liverpool were travelling to Old Trafford. But this time, unlike recent games, we were full of positivity when Liverpool came to town, right?
Yeah, we really were. And we were, if anything, looking for a way to derail them and their title challenge, right?
We were. But things didn't go according to plan at all, did they, pal? On the 21st minute, Pereira had to replace Herrera due to injury. And on the 25th minute, Lingard, who was actually returning from injury himself, had to replace Mata. And then on the 43rd minute, Lingard had to come off himself. And Alexis Sanchez came on. Jesse Lingard did have a big chance when he was on. United showed great resolve. Ole showed great tactical acumen to manage to repel Liverpool for the whole of the second half after making 3 subs in the first. So another really good sign.
Yeah, and I'm right in thinking that Rashford pulled up a little bit lame as well and couldn't even be substituted himself because we had made all 3 subs, right?
Absolutely right, yeah.
And I think that, remember at the time, that Liverpool team were flying, right? They had just beaten a team in the Champions League, I think 4-0, I can't remember who it was. And I think we held them to 1 shot on target, which was a pretty speculative shot from Daniel Sturridge from distance.
Yeah.
Really unlucky we had that goal disallowed near the end, that Smalling chance, when really didn't need to be offside, but he was called offside. But I actually remember that game as being the huge emergence of Scott McTominay. I thought he was absolutely fantastic and came up against a really good midfield trio for them and really held his own.
Yes, mate. And we were tasked with stopping Liverpool from charging towards the title. We were told that we needed to take points off them. How many points did they miss out by, mate?
Just the 1, right?
So, there you go.
It, yeah.
We'll claim that one, pal, won't we?
Every day.
Another year on top of the 29. So, away to Crystal Palace. Romelu Lukaku with a brace. Ashley Young with a lovely third. Lukaku playing number 9. It was a nice clincher from Youngie, wasn't it?
It really was. And it was a real relief, I remember, that we went 2-0 up and conceded that goal. I remember De Gea collided with the post, looked a bit vulnerable for a little bit, and we really looked like we were on the back foot, and we were able to ride the storm and come out with the 3 points. It was a massive 3 points for us.
It was, mate. And, when you go 2-0 up and then you concede, it goes to 2-1. It does. The match swings, doesn't it? And we reacted fantastically.
It does, especially away from home.
Yeah, and just 8 minutes after as well. So, But yeah, you were right. There was a massive, massive relief when Youngie banged it in. And that was like the United of old as well. We're in a sticky situation. Let's get this sorted. And we did.
Massive 3 points, massive 3 goals, and a good performance to boot.
It was, mate. And so we had one more game to go until we headed for Paris for that dead rubber in the Parc des Princes. United conceded early to Valerie. We blamed David De Gea a touch, didn't we, on the podcast?
Yeah.
We thought it was an uncharacteristic error from Big Dave.
Yeah, I think a few cracks started to form in his confidence and our confidence in him.
Exactly, mate. But again, we reacted well. Pereira with an absolute beauty, goal of the season. And then Romelu Lukaku fired in the second. Ward-Prowse banged in a free kick on the 75th, but Romelu Lukaku on the 88th minute clinched all 3 points for Manchester United. Back-to-back braces for Lukaku. Solskjaer said it was like the old days. We were 4th place in the Premier League, heading into the Paris game. A really, really, really big result.
It really was. And, there are a few times during that game that it just looked like it was going to be one of those days that our luck wasn't going to be with us. I remember Rashford had a huge chance, Lukaku had a huge chance in the first half, and if anything, Diogo Dalot came on and completely shifted the tide. Set Pereira up for the first goal. Pereira had a fantastic assist as well for Lukaku's first goal.
Yeah.
And it was, again, just that never say die attitude that we'd even showed the game before against Palace, that we just had complete belief in everyone in the squad and belief in Ole's tactics and managed to come out with it.
Yes, mate. And so we headed to Paris with a spring in our step, knowing that there was a mountain to climb at the Parc des Princes. Just 2 minutes in, Rashford wound up against the legendary Gianluigi Buffon. Buffon coughed it up, Romelu Lukaku was there in a flash, fired home, and suddenly a little spark of light appeared for United fans everywhere.
It really did, and I think we had a really strong game plan. Remember, we started with that new hybrid back 5, back 3 formation, Bailly on the right.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe in the long run didn't really work very well, but we had great belief in everything we were doing that day and had a game plan, stuck to it, and couldn't believe our luck when Lukaku put that in the first couple of minutes. Scott McTominay was fantastic in the middle again, really coming of age.
Yeah, he was. But PSG hit back, burnout on the 12th minute, added the equaliser. And then on the 30th minute, Lukaku pounced round a Buffon and fired in from a really tight angle. It was a great finish, wasn't it?
Yeah, it really was. Again, just what we deserved as well. I think that there were times where we had our backs to the wall, but every player had each other's backs, and it was no less than what we deserved to be able to stick that in.
It was in 6 in 3 for Lukaku. An amazing form from the big guy. Going into half-time, we were definitely in the tie, weren't we, pal?
100%. 100%. We were still a bit worried, obviously, that one moment of brilliance from Mbappe or one of their other world-class players could shift the tide, and it was squeaky bum time, as Sir Alex liked to say.
It was, and Angel Di Maria actually had the ball in the net, didn't he?
He did. I thought it was all over, and I just thought, God, not him. Anyone but him.
It would have just been the worst, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but...
As it happened, Diogo Dalot in, what about the 91st, 92nd minute, was it?
Yeah.
Wound up, and Kimpembe, who should have been suspended from the first leg, should have been sent off, should have had a red card, turned his back, stuck his elbow out, and the referee signalled that he was going to go to VAR. I remember, pal, we were actually on the line together, weren't we? And you were saying, why is he checking a corner? Why is he wasting time checking a corner? And I was like, mate, it can't be. It can't be a corner. You must be checking a penalty. The only thing they check.
Didn't see it.
And before we knew it, and then when it hit his hand, it was not really another decision the ref could give. If he's gone to see if it's hit his hand, then if it's hit his hand, he's got to give a penalty, right?
Couldn't believe it, mate. And just shows maybe why we need VAR, because in real time, a lot of people didn't see that. It was a complete microseconds between the ball leaving Dalot's foot and hitting Kimpembe's hand. And if we've got the technology, why not use it, especially when it's going to be used to our advantage?
Yes, mate. And Rashford and Lukaku had a little chat, and Rashford took the responsibility, stepped up, fired the penalty. He went the same way as Buffon, and you know what it's like, pal. When the ball leaves someone's foot and the keeper's gone that way, your heart stops just for that split second, doesn't it? As you wait to see whether it's going past the keeper or back off the keeper. But it went in, mate, and the Manchester United world went absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
One of the best moments for years, mate.
For absolute years. Loved seeing the celebrations on and off the field. All of our players who didn't manage to make it were going crazy at home, as we all were. Everyone in the Parc des Princes, all the Paris fans are completely stunned. You got Pogba and Evra dancing in the director's box. And it was just, again, this never give up attitude which we had accumulated over the last couple of games, just pinnacled into that fantastic moment.
It was just magic, wasn't it? We had Mason Greenwood and Teef Chong on the field. Greenwood didn't even have the right right numbers on the back of his shirts because the kit man wasn't expecting him to be in a squad. We had Eric Cantona starting on Neymar's dad. We had all sorts going on, didn't we, pal?
Yeah. And then that wonderful photo afterwards of Sir Alex, Eric and Solskjaer in the dressing room.
Absolutely, buddy. And you know what? It made us feel like United fans again. The years we had of the comeback victories, the trophies, those big European nights. We were allowed to let loose again, weren't we?
Absolutely. I think, again, the shackles that we had accumulated as fans completely came off, and we were able just to go wild, wild, wild again.
We have discussed on the podcast, Scott, that we maybe went a little bit too wild, considering it was a last 16 game. But we're keeping this podcast just the honeymoon period with Ole at the wheel. So United advanced to the quarterfinals of the Champions League against all the odds. For a moment in time on that magical night in the Parc des Princes, we were reminded just what a special club we support. Belief returned to Manchester United fans, and it felt wonderful. Thanks for joining us again, Reds. Remember to subscribe, follow and like on your favourite app. And follow us on Instagram at United100podcast. In part 3, we will discuss where it all went wrong and where United go from here. But for now, in our minds at least, we're staying in Paris with Ollie, Fergie and the King. Cheerio, Reds.
Ta-ra.